Hello, friends. Around 4,500 years ago, in Egypt, was erected something that still, to this day, amazes. The Great Pyramid of Giza. One of the magnificent structures erected to date and was for more than 3,800 years the tallest man-made building in the world, at 146.6 meters. The stones used in the pyramids were very heavy. It has been estimated that the Great Pyramid weighed approximately 6 million tons. The Burj Khalifa, at present the tallest structure on Earth, weighs a minuscule 500,000 tons. Such comparison raises an easy question which has troubled historians and archaeologists. How was it built? Incredible. The thought, as they don't have cranes and bulldozers and all these modern technologies we use every day, and yet they built all this, what has become one of the history's greatest monuments of human ingenuity. And think of a built edifice which withstood the burning sun, stormy storms, heavy rains, and all other incessant forces of weather since more than 4,500 years. No other structure has survived older and more enormous than this. That raises a pretty interesting question. How did this monumental feat get accomplished? Let's take a look in the following video at how the mystery of the pyramids unfolds. The Great Pyramid must be considered the most mystical structure that exists on Earth. Completed around 2500 BC, it became the world's tallest built structure for over 3,800 years. Such pyramids were built as giant tombs, first covered in shining white limestone that was supposed to hide the dark secrets within the dead bodies. The further we stretch into history, the more difficult the facts appear to be, which enables us not to decide in what respect, when, and how. The Great Pyramid of Giza is believed to have been built in 2580 BC during the reign of Pharaoh Khufu. The pharaohs of old ruled Egypt, and most things concerning Pharaoh Khufu remain mysteries to date. We still are in the knowledge that this great leader was the second Old Kingdom ruler of Egypt, 4th dynasty. The arguments do come concerning how long his reign was. In his case, the given arguments are from 23 to 38 years in general, and with some as holding it over for the best part of their entire period. The pyramid is situated to the west of the River Nile. From pictures or videos you will see that there was not just one pyramid in its area. You could figure out that 2 other pyramids were constructed in one land. Of the 3, the tallest one was the Pyramid of Giza, also known as Pyramid of Khufu. The second tallest was constructed slightly shorter than Khufu, and that pyramid was owned by Khafra, who is known to have been the son of Khufu. The smallest was the Pyramid of Menkaure, who was known to have been the son of Khafra. It was the only monument of his times that survived in its entirety, except for the Great Sphinx and a number of burial tombs. This is estimated to be with 138 pyramids round Egypt in total. Shape and size vary, with many of them having tolerated erosion, and only so many are well preserved to this day. Best preserved of those is, probably, the Great Pyramid of Giza. But what were these monumental structures for? Like most ancient monuments, they were built as tombs. Pharaohs were buried within the pyramids because the ancient Egyptians believed so strongly in the afterlife. They believed that life goes on after death. After dying, the soul of the deceased would journey to the underworld, where it would be judged by the gods. Those who had lived a virtuous life were assured of after-death immortality in one form or another in the afterlife. The grand tombs were commissioned, during their lifetime, as a means to this effect. They would take on the afterlife with all the massive stocks of foodstuff, riches, precious jewels, furniture, and clothing to be comfortable while dead. The dead ones were mummified inside wood or stone sarcophagi. You might then ask how we know these beliefs and practices shaped the construction of the pyramids. There are 2 reasons for that. First, Several other pyramids, as well as even some of the sarcophagi themselves found, contained inscriptions with customs and practices. The second reason is that almost all the ancient pyramids that survived in Egypt and Sudan were tombs. However, in regard to the Great Pyramid of Giza specifically, little evidence is shown to demonstrate that this monument actually is a tomb. Thus, over the years, therefore, various other theories have developed. Once archaeologists managed to penetrate the Great Pyramid, they found 3 items and an empty sarcophagus. This supposed sarcophagus is attributed to Khufu. According to reports, treasures that should have been around the mentioned sarcophagus were removed before they could be studied by the archaeologists. Some of the more interesting alternative theories that have arisen in this regard include that of the Great Pyramid being a power plant and therefore would generate electricity. The proponents of this theory argue that the ancient Egyptians were highly advanced in their technology and had developed a way of harnessing electricity. They point to ancient artworks on temple walls as evidence, claiming that these drawings are a light bulb, stating that the Egyptians invented it before losing the technology. Such conspiracy theories usually develop without substantial proof. The reasonings put forth to substantiate the claims usually lack logical rationality. For instance, if, indeed, such light bulbs did exist during the ancient Egyptian era, then no physical evidence concerning them exists. Indeed, such an artwork depicts some mythical stories instead of technological inventions. The second theory is that the pyramids were granaries where grains were stored. The American politician Ben Carson, in 2016, brought forward this theory. According to his personal theory, he mentioned that the pyramids were constructed by Jesus Christ's father. He further said, "My personal theory is that Joseph built the pyramids in order to store grains." Now, all the archaeologists think that they were made by pharaohs. Okay. This leads me to the second reason conspiracy theories proliferate. Political leaders might exploit religious emotions for their purpose. But this is a truth which every historian agrees with, that the Great Pyramid of Giza was built as a grave. According to the old belief, the afterlife of the pharaoh was to be great if his tomb was bigger and he had greater treasures buried along with him. Now comes the most important question: how were these pyramids built? And, undoubtedly, this is the most mystifying aspect of the pyramids. How was it possible for people to erect a 146.6 meters tall structure with stones as heavy as 2.5 to 15 tons? Each stone was carved out with very minute precision without even standards being there for a proper construction tool. How did they place these gigantic rocks on top of each other without the wheel? As we know it today, at that time in Egypt, it is said that the Great Pyramid of Giza was completed in about 20 years. There are many theories as to how this was accomplished, and I will not address any of the wild conspiracy theories. Let's just debunk a few of the common misconceptions about the pyramids. Most films on this subject depict the pyramids to have been built on the basis of slave labor. The people who are made to work are thus depicted as being poor, collecting minimum wages and working in terrible conditions. It can be traced back in history in 5th BC Greek history by Herodotus, who first stated that slaves did it. However, this theory has been completely eradicated. The laborers who were the builders of the pyramids were good, well-fed, and free from any form of abuse. They are allowed to have a considerable ration of food, thus becoming stronger and healthier than other Egyptian citizens during the same period. These workers would live in communities around the construction site. During off-seasons of agriculture, the farmers would join the workforce, contributing to this monumental project. In this regard, people in the kingdom were for one goal, so they showed their loyalty to their pharaoh. Evidently, with various estimates, it is assessed that 20,000 to 30,000 workers constructed the Great Pyramid. On average for these workers on site, There were around 10 hours a day. In general, the total material used in the construction process for the Great Pyramid include limestone worth 1.6 million tons, granites to the tune of 8,000 tons, besides mortar worth 500,000 tons. Most of the material listed above was sourced locally apart from those few transported 800 kilometers away from the main site to their quarries. But how did these stones cut again? Most of the implements were made with copper, tools were shaped of copper. Dolerite was used to shape up the harder rocks, like for example granite. Ancient Egyptians developed novel techniques in the cutting of the stone. They made use of natural cracks and holes in the rock. They inserted such water-soaked wedges in these cracks. As it would absorb the moisture, it swelled up and broke the rock. How could they move these gigantic stones then? Of course, they could not use wheeled carts. Therefore, a pretty well-supported theory is the building of rafts on the River Nile to fetch the stones from the quarries to the pyramid site. Then, within the pyramids, these stones were moved on sleighs over wet surfaces. This theory proved to be correct with a 2014 study from a painting in the tomb of Jehuti-Hotep, which dates back to about 1900 BC. On this painting, people are found drawing a statue in a sledge. Careful observation in the painting shows that on the sand in front of the statue, a man is pouring water. They were initially of the opinion that this was a ritual tradition. On experiment, they noted, wet sand reduces friction, making it very easy to pull the sledge even with heavy loads. The challenge lies in lifting the stones up to 146.6 meters. Different theories abound as to how this was achieved. Some of them include a long ramp system that can be straight, zigzagged, or circular. Others believe that ramps were built on both sides of the pyramid, and workers moved stones up beside them as they built the different levels. The more we look into construction methods, the more questions we come across. It's a fact that nobody actually knows how the ancient Egyptians built the pyramids. However, this fact hasn't stopped them from developing some fascinating theories. Archaeologists have always found new evidence that always increases our knowledge of the ancient civilizations. The construction of the pyramids is a very inspiring example of human ingenuity and determination, considering they were able to achieve such monumental feats with such meager resources. Looking at the Great Pyramid of Giza, above all, lies the fact that it represents a symbol of greatness by the ancient Egyptians and the deep relationship they had with their beliefs about the afterlife. Those ancient builders inspired and intrigued us today by leaving behind a legacy that provokes questions on the possibilities of human achievement.